Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Laz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday. Hello, Walnut. Welcome to another episode of Walnut Wednesday. It is me, Laz, here with Miss Kate again for episode 80. Yeah.
Hey, I'm back.
Oh, yeah. I can't believe we're up to episode 80. Feelings? Thoughts?
Quicker every time. Like the gap between feels quicker every time, for sure.
I love it. Yeah, it does go really, really quick. And then I get really excited. And then I also had this like brain fart last night because I was like, oh my gosh, it's so high up to the nearly 100 mark. Like it's climbing up. So well done to us for committing to every 10, but also a little side well done to me for doing this every single week.
Every week you don't go, do you know what? Sorry, I missed last Wednesday. No, you without fail every Wednesday for the last 80 Wednesdays. That's a bloody long time.
Wow.
And I was thinking that too. I was like, oh, 100. Oh, what are we gonna have to do for that? Like, should we just, I'll do it naked. No,
yeah, we'll do something. We could,
Okay.
Look, we're open to suggestions, Walnut. So if you think of anything for episode 100, give us a yell, because let's do something fun.
It could be cool if you like get some questions collated in and we run through them, or maybe something live. I don't know. I'm not very technical, even though I'm a film producer and I should be, but something live could be fun.
Yeah, I'm thinking you're like the technical one of the two of us, but okay. Yeah, that sounds good. We'll figure something out. So Walnut, invitation to you for episode 100. That I feel like it's going to come around so much quicker than I thought. So questions to you, send them through to Kate and I. Any ideas for episode 100? We want to hear from you, so let us know. But let's dig into episode 80. And if you were in my group, The Walnut Tree, I did a live video recently where I had just finished doing a healing circle, which was all about the Sisterhood Wound, and people call it like the witch wound as well. And it's all about like not necessarily conditioning and stuff like that, but like ancestral wounding of the feminine. And yeah, can backdate for a little while. And I thought that Kate would be the perfect person to talk about this stuff with, because Kate, you've got some very worldly views, and I feel like when you speak things, you help me understand. So I feel like you could help the walnuts understand too. So I don't know, I just thought it was a great topic of discussion, and you mentioned in the comments, Kate, that you'd be keen to have a chat about this. So I don't know, first initial thoughts?
So my initial thought, I mean, I know there'll be so much more to this, but my big thing that I noticed you say, which you've mentioned a couple times, which I want to get your, like, I don't know, perspective on, is that you tend to hate female characters in films and TV shows.
Yeah, so this was a big, I mean, I've only told this to Walnut, I've only told this to Kate before, really, in an actual conversating kind of sense. But after that class, the host kind of talked about this a little bit more, about this weird like feuding and hatreds between women. And I really triggered myself out just from being myself, because literally every single, I can't even really think of what one that I've liked recently. Every single female protagonist I have either despised, been annoyed by, or just found at least one thing that royally pisses me off about her. And I don't know where that comes from. And I put it in the group, and someone actually posted that they agreed. And she said that I either fully girl crush and like want to be them, like a little escapism-y kind, which yep, totally get that, or I fully hate them. It's kind of like Nicole Kidman or Adam Sandler. You love them or you hate them.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because I mean, and it could go deep in so many ways. One thing that's kind of funny is both of us did women in film at university, and I think, you know, without going to technical and or, you know, industry level on it all, is one really really big thing is women characters in films were written by men. So they were written like, how annoying is the character in Indiana Jones Temple of Doom, who's literally there to be blonde and to scream and to be annoying, right? Ironically, she actually married the director, I think. But anyway, like, it's like they weren't written by women. So they are annoying because you think, because actually what you're seeing is almost an offensive cookie cutout of what women are viewed as, and you're going, fuck no, I'm not that. That's actually offensive and annoying. Yeah.
Oh my god, Walnut, if you're listening, not watching this, I've got like my hands on my head, my mouth is like on the floor, and my eyes are big and wide. That I didn't think of it that way.
And I mean, it's the similar thing with, you know, any kind of minority, like, you know, characters that were written into shows to have a gay person on the show because that was
Yeah.
in vogue. There's no people from the LGBTQ, you know, in the writer's room likely, or the executive suite, very likely. It's probably white men going, well, this will be good for our ratings. Similar with people of color as well. And women's a really big part of that. They're usually you know, like another really strong one I remember is Breaking Bad, which is literally about a really nice science teacher becoming a criminal, and everyone hated his wife. How wild is that? That everyone hated the wife. And it's like, but we can forgive, you know, Sons of Anarchy. Most people hate the girlfriend in that rather than the guy who's, you know, I mean, he's sexy as fuck, but we forgive all his sins. There was a recent show I was watching where I saw these reviews of an episode saying this girl's gone too far because she disrespected this person. And when I watched the episode, yeah, the key character is the best male character. Like, I love him, but like, he did something wrong, and this woman lashed out on him about it, and it was like, oh, but you're not allowed to because he's untouchable. And it was just like, I started seeing all these things and being like, why are we so harsh on these women? So that's one thing I think when you dislike a character, ask yourself why. Is it the writing? Is it what they're saying? You know what I mean? Like, there's a film that was unwatchable for me. It was called, I think, What Men Want, and it's a
Oh,
remake of the Mel Gibson film What Women Want.
yeah.
And you know, you've got a black woman as the principal character. Great. Clearly, and I looked this up partway through, clearly written and directed by a white man, because it was unbelievably offensive before it even got to like the whole she can read men's minds. And I just thought, I can't keep watching this film because it's going to just get more sexist and racist by the minute. And it was unwatchable. And I was like, this is a thing, like, with all this, you know, backing up women or back, you know, all this kind of stuff. It's like, and I'm going more into the film industry because it's where my interest lies, but it's like, do it for the right reasons. Don't have these white guys, like, let's be honest, white straight guys who are, you know, studio execs going, well, we need something like this. What I would say, which is kind of for me really really cool, is, and I'm sure you have, is start watching things made by women. You know,
Mm.
Fleabag, which is
Love,
incredible.
love
Yeah,
Fleabag.
exactly. And
Actually,
you know why? She is incredibly flawed, but relatable because it's written by a woman.
yeah.
Killing Eve, incredible. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there's a few things that have come out. You know, I May Destroy You. All these things that have come out that are coming from the perspectives of the people we're seeing on the screen, not coming from the same shoddy, you know, God bless them, but like, would it kill Martin Scorsese or Quentin Tarantino to make some cool female characters? Like, you know, Kill Bill, great, but like, you know, that's about it. And you know, it's like, you're just not going to get that content there. So I think that's a really big one. And so it does make sense that you don't like characters like that because they're offensive to you. That's like, there's a thing that where you want to separate yourself from it. You go, that's not me. And now I hate that. But you're hating the wrong, you're hating the woman on screen rather than the,
behind the
idiot that wrote the
screen.
script,
I love
So
this. This has given me such a different perspective on it, and it also kind of does relate to like the woo woo witchy side that I haven't done my full you know extensive research on it, but I do know that a lot of people do talk about this, like, yeah, the sisterhood and this witch wound, because it's the patriarchy, man. It just kind of came on in and made us all just like how I said in the Facebook live, even like we all are probably familiar with the Salem witch trials, but it actually went on in Europe a lot earlier than that. And it started when the church kind of came in, white men, and just started picking on a minority. It probably went on not just women, but and we were put into this, I say we as women were put into this place where we couldn't trust each other because everyone was snitching each other out. Everyone was saying, oh, I don't like her and she's weird, so let's point the finger on her so no one's looking at us. And it was this like survival mentality between women, and actually some men that got
Hey,
proved
there's
as
always the
witches.
odd man that got killed or got, marginalized. There's got to be at least, you can always throw a couple in there, but yeah, you're right. The majority were women, and yes, so is that what you kind of like? Because obviously I wasn't on that talk. Is that something that seems like a wound or a trauma that's sort of been passed down to be distrustful to this day of other women? Because I mean, like all girls who went to school, like we're really rough on each other. And it's like something that doesn't have to be taught. It's just like ingrained.
Yeah.
So it makes you think, well, where did that come from? Is that kind of what you learned about?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit of how it just old time things like that. It just made me realize how old things seep into the now and we don't actually know why. So,
Yeah.
for example, that this, like, I still feel bad about it now. I think we've actually discussed this before, but there was a girl at my school when I was very, very young, and I was so mean to her because she was weird. And
Mm.
define weird. Why was she weird? I don't know. She had an accent and a mullet because I didn't have one at my, and I
Was it me?
I
Sounds like
didn't have
me.
this idea that no, I didn't have this idea like, oh, I'm gonna wake up and be mean to this girl. But it was this group thing, like point at her so that it's not me. And it's
Yeah.
this, and that, like, you know what I mean? It just kind of made me think of, holy shit. It filters into now by just what, I don't even know how that gets past.
I think that happens as well. Like it's hard to necessarily say that's just a female thing anyway, because I definitely think school is like, I don't know how you even fix that problem, but school is rough because no one wants to be the bottom of the ladder, the bottom of the heap. So if there's a smelly kid you can point your finger at, you're going to, because it means everyone, like you said, everyone's looking at them. Um, and I mean, I don't think I'm any saint because I know I probably did the same, but I also know I often wasn't the bottom of the heap. But I definitely got pointed out a lot for my accent and things like that. And that's probably why I still talk weird anyway, because I was like, built up a thick skin of it and I didn't actually try to fit in as much. But I do know that like it's one of those things that a lot of people, well, you would think a lot of people when they become adults regret. And what I guess I've realized, and I think this is where it does come more into women, is they don't. They don't even know to regret it because they're still living life like that. Like it will become the mummy mafia, you know what I mean? And it's like, there'll be the people with all the cool prams and strollers and, burping bibs or whatever. And there's some mom at the play group that they're all like, oh, what? She's still breastfeeding or she's not breastfeeding or what? You know what I mean? Like, and so there's something like pack mentality about making sure there's always a runt to pick on or something. And it just feels, yeah, it's very animalistic, but it's also very calculated at the same time. So I couldn't unpack that. I guess all I could say would be like, I'm so glad I clocked into it at a fairly young age and was like, I don't really know what to do about it. I was still too immature and too young to do much about it other than just feel crap. But as an adult now, I'm like, oh man, at least I don't think I bullied anyone,
Yeah.
you know? And I definitely feel like with women, and maybe that's why I've been more receptive to this sort of movement of feminism and equality and things, because I've never really seen women as the enemy or the competitor. I've been very much of the case of when one of us wins, we all win. And I think that came from maybe not being a bit of an outsider younger, you know? But I think anyone can. And it's what's great is having conversations about it.
Yeah, I like that, and it's just making me I don't know, I feel like this actually can segue into a whole different conversation all about like bullying and stuff, because I've
Yeah.
been on both ends of that. Like, I was mean to this girl, I still feel bad about it to this day, but then also I've been like pushed over by these two older girls on the
Yeah.
swimming day and calling me all sorts of names, and I was like kept being pushed underwater, and I was like, why are you picking up, what did I do? They were girls, funnily enough, but
Yeah.
that's a whole different story. But I feel like I want to keep this more on the topic of feminism
Yeah.
and women, because I do really like your view of it. Like you said, you have this different way of looking at things, and something that you've talked to me a little bit about um is that, I don't know, you speak about creating an awareness and educating people and having these kinds of conversations in such a constructive way rather than like a kind of way.
Yeah.
And something that's been going on in my local city in Wellington, and your former local
Oh,
city,
yeah.
is there's been a lot of the it's not safe to walk through down the dark alleyways in Wellington at
Mhm.
the moment. It's always been there, right? And it's just come up because I think the whole feminism rising is happening, and people are actually speaking, women are speaking a little bit more, and it's actually making the dudes a little bit uncomfortable. So I'd love to talk about this a little
Yeah.
bit more, because even people like my dad and my Geordie, who are not assholes, Geordie borderline.
No. But
No,
yeah,
who are
yeah.
not assholes,
No.
but they're going, oh shit, didn't know that. And it's like, are you kidding? And I actually use an example, Kate, that you and I have talked about in the car on one of our road trips.
Mm,
My dad said something like, I didn't, oh, how can it be that bad? He talked about something about a woman walking down the street, and if a man is behind her. And I said, and I took your example, and maybe you could talk about this a little bit more, but I said, I gave an example when I was in the lift recently at work,
mm,
and I was in like the front bit of the elevator, and all these people were behind. They all got out. There was a man behind me, and literally survival instinct, you could call, but I had heckles because he didn't
yeah.
move to the other side. He was still
It's
behind me, and
weird.
we were both in this lift. And I explained that to my dad, like, as a woman, um
Yeah.
those feelings are planted in there, and I feel like, ancestral wounds, witch wound as well, I feel like they do come from a time where it has filtered through, and bad things do happen, but I don't know. I feel like I want to talk more about it's not all men, but you know,
Yeah.
let's go. I'd
This
love
is
to
how
hear.
I kind of try to approach it, which is there's a couple of things. One, which is a bit silly, but you can say to a guy, it's like, imagine you're given a box of chocolates, but one of those chocolates, and you don't know which one, you can't sniff it out, you just have to put it in your mouth. One of them shit. One of them is not chocolate, it's a bowl of shit. You're gonna be really fucking cautious every chocolate you put in your mouth, right? Really cautious, because it only takes one mouthful of shit for that to be ruined. And I'm not saying, and that's the point.
Mhm.
It's like one in like 1,000 chocolates, right? You're still gonna be wary. And that's the point, is that no, it's not all men, but we don't know which one of you it is, because in the UK recently, unfortunately, a girl about our age was walking home at 9 p.m., not super late, in a lit area, and a policeman stopped her and then her remains were found a few days later, you know? And that's been a big thing that's happened here recently, where she went missing. And also, you know, she's a pretty kind of blonde white girl as well, 30s. So I mean, she got a lot of publicity, but I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of other women that have gone missing that don't get as much as well. But it was like, what could she possibly, you know, the thing is usually, yeah, the don't walk down the alleys, walk in twos. You know, the last message she had on her phone was her friend saying, let me know when you're home, right? And that was the thing, you know, text me when you're home was trending, because
Still
women
is.
do that. Women do that all the time. Text me when you're home. And we don't even necessarily think in case she get murdered. We don't even think about that. But like, it's something that's ingrained as protection, you know, it's us, it's what we need to do. And when men go, I didn't realize it was that bad. You know, I think that what it's saying, it's like going, well, you need to start like the pendulum swing of this, which is men being afraid. You know, it's like men have never been afraid, women have been constantly afraid. And now men are really uncomfortable because they're afraid. They're like, well, what if someone misreads my actions? What if this? What if that? And it's like, so you're worried that someone might think you're a bad guy. What women have been afraid of is actual bad guys. You know what I mean? Like, you're not afraid because that person's going to hurt you or murder you or rape you. You're scared that they might think you'll murder them or hurt them or rape them. It's like, you realize if you want to talk about equality, it's like your fears are pretty low down on the list. And it's like, and if you're concerned about someone feeling like that about you, then go out of your way to make sure you don't seem threatening. If you're walking closely behind someone at night and you realize that it's a woman, cross the road, slow down, make a call. Those are things that, like, it seems ridiculous to men, but it's like, but if it makes someone feel a lot better, how hard is that to do? If that's your inconvenience, to be like, oh, I had to slow down or I had to cross the road so a woman didn't think I might, you know, be a threat to them. What a pain in the ass. You know, when you put in that perspective, it's like not a huge hindrance, really, is it? You know, not like the woman thinking, do I get my keys out and hold them between my knuckles? Do I make a call? Do I get the emergency number lined up? You know, like the worst that can happen to the guy, you know, without extenuating circumstances, always terrible things can happen to men as well. But, you know, for the most part, men are not walking on the street afraid of women. If they are walking on the street afraid, it's usually of other men, which just proves the point even more. So I think the conversation is usually going like I had an interesting one a couple of years ago with a guy that said, oh, I'm really worried at work now because I like to hug people. And I get really worried that I'm going to hug someone and they're going to not be happy and I'm going to get a complaint and I might get fired. And I went, can I just reframe what your fear is or what you're telling me? Because what it sounds like to me is now that you've never had to think about how another person felt about you hugging them, and now you do. Isn't that a good thing that you've now realized, oh, I should consider someone else before I physically embrace them in a workplace? You know, it sounds silly, but it's like, well, you know, if the woman's hugging you back because she's afraid if she goes, no, no, thanks, she's going to get a hard time about it or possibly lose her job because she's no fun, which has happened, especially if there's different hierarchies at work. And now you're just starting to join the party, essentially, of being like, ooh, maybe I get in trouble because I hugged someone I shouldn't. That's really not a bad thing. That's actually progress. It's just, you're so, you know, you've been in a privileged position to not have to think about it. Thinking about whether someone is comfortable with you touching them is should have been the norm. And he took it and he was like, I'd never thought about it that way. And I think it was great. He asked the question too, credit, you know, he went, this is a fear. Like, you know, what do I do about that? And I went, you don't hug someone unless you're sure. You know, you just don't, then you don't do it. Is that all right with you? And he was like, well, I guess so. It was like, you know, it's, and I think that's the thing is like, Jordy, your dad, my friends, my male friends, they don't have to be the ones attacking women or being emotionally abusive or even just being, you know, the creep at the bar. But without having their eyes open, they can't also be our ally in the sense of calling those men out, you know? And I think that's what the thing is. It's going like, I think sometimes men think, oh, well, I'm not one of them. And they put their hands up and they get really defensive. And it's like, well, first of all, no one said you were. But second, you've got to, all you need to do is recognize there are guys like that, and they could be your mates, and they could be some stranger on the train, or they could be someone at a bar. And you just need to open your eyes and make sure that, you know, you speak up as well, because it's not fair that it's all on us to change people's minds. Like
And
with all movements, you know, Black slavery did not end just because Black people rose up. They needed white allies. It is the exact same for women. Not as bad, we're not enslaved anymore, we can vote and things like that. But like, you know, it's not just women that need to like be marching on the streets and that kind of thing. Like men, it's not good enough to say, well, I'm not one of them. You know, men need to kind of be marching with us on our side.
yeah, and the I'm not one of them, it kind of also like, I can empathize with this because it reminds me of the women that I hate in the movies. Because I'm like, well, I'm not you. I'm not that rape man. I'm not that creepy guy in the alleyway that's attacking women. I'm not that crying, stupid, squealy girl on the TV shows that's irritating Lara. You know, like
Yeah,
it
but
all kind of relates. I can,
it's interesting though, because it's like, there's a fine line between being like, I'm not the one, and being able to enable your friends to be it though. You know, like,
that's a whole nother, yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's that
yeah. So,
parenting
I
as
mean,
well, isn't it? It's that, oh, he always does that. Oh, it's just
always just,
them.
always just really protective of his girlfriend, you know, and it's like, he's called her 6 times because she's out with the girls to check where she is. You know, like, when are you gonna sit that guy down and say, mate, what are you doing? And like, reading the signs, like women are good at knowing when other women are in bad relationships, you know, and
Mhm.
or in bad situations. Whereas that's the thing, is I don't buy it. I think there's a willful blindness, and there is a shrug of the shoulders, because it's hard to confront your friends. Men aren't traditionally the ones to sit down and have the chat about things, whereas girls are, you know. So yeah, I mean, and that's just one part. I think that's where the whole fear that comes from men, even though, you know, I do sympathize. I think change is scary, and suddenly feeling like you could get canceled or fired or in trouble about things that 3 years ago were fine would jar you. But what you need to, I think the challenge is being like, you know, why is that happening? In a pen, you know, when things change, it's not going to just suddenly go, oh, we fixed it. It's going to go really far the other side, which is kind of cancel culture, which I'm not a fan of, but it is kind of cancel culture. It is calling people out. It is being hypersensitive, because we're overcorrecting something that's been in place for a really, really long time. And it will take a while to find the balance. And I am a little bit, you know, tough on the side of being like, you know, get over it.
Yeah.
Which is,
Well,
it's brutal, but it's like, have the chat and that kind of thing. If they have the chat, I'm happy with it. But the men that are complaining and saying not all men, and, you know, thinking that they're, you know, all straight white men are now getting no respect, and they're, you know, evil and all this stuff, and being all victimy about it. It's like, no, sorry, no miniature violins allowed in here, you know? But if you want to have a chat with me, I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you. But if you're just saying, well, I didn't do it, so what is everyone crying about? It's like, well, other people are. They are. It's just like, you know, women don't tend to murder men randomly on the street, or kill their partners nearly as often as men do. And it's like, we all know it happens. We just kind of accepted it as like, yeah, well, I don't do it. It's like, it's not cool.
yeah. Funnily enough, this is so funny, but last night, and it's been on my watch list to rewatch for a little while, but I watched it again last night, so this is really funny that it wasn't even intentional, but I just rewatched Enough with J-Lo. And
I mean, I love J-Lo. I mean, there's problems with that film, but I don't know why, but I love that film.
it's a goodie. It's a real goodie, and I think it's quite timeless, but also I remember it being so much more brutal, and I find that an interesting fact in itself, because the way that he actually just smacks her in the nose. I remember
Mm,
it hitting me a lot harder when I first watched it, being like, whoa, and this is so violent. But I watched it back now, I'm like, this ain't shit. Like, it is, it's a heavy movie, and it's got a lot
that's
of really strong
interesting.
messages and stuff. But yeah, I remember last night being like, oh, I remember it being a lot more aggressive.
Well, it's just interesting, I guess, because it's the desensitizing as well. But
Mm.
like, I think about that, and I don't know. Me and my sister are the same. We watched enough a few times. We watched Sleeping with the Enemy, which is the Julia Roberts one, where she like fakes her own death to go away from an abusive husband.
Oh my
There's
God, I forgot about that one.
yeah, there's a lot, and it's not a very well done. But like the end of it's really shocking. But like, what's interesting is that's almost a whole genre. That's almost a genre of women getting away. And I'm like, I've got to ask the question: can you think of a film where a man's trying to get away from an abusive woman?
Crickets.
Who would make that? Huh?
Crickets and hay bales. Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, and you know what? I thought of another funny thing, because I gotta say, I think it's funny, it holds up. I love The Hangover, right? The first one anyway. And then I watched it recently and I still had a great time, and I thought, as if they could make a film with women going to Vegas getting roofied and it be a comedy. You know what I mean? Only men could decide, let's make a whole like groundbreaking comedy film about getting accidentally roofied. And I just thought, like, there's such a vast difference. There's just such a huge difference between that freedom and that safety and that privilege, you know. And the thing they do in those films, like Enough as well, is you like the guy at the start. He's always charming, and that's the point, you know. Like and that's why the first time you watched it was probably more shocking, because you actually do like the guy, so you're along, you're identifying with the woman, because you are like gobsmacked that this guy just smacked her because he finally got her, you know, she became the wife and then she had the baby and things like that. There's a lot of like, I can think of so many films like that, or you know, those ones where the possessive ex or something comes back. There's a few ones with that, with men, like Fatal Attraction and things like that, where they sleep with a woman and she becomes obsessed with him.
Mm.
And it's like, well, he did just cheat on his wife with this woman, so there's that.
But
But you know,
don't blame him for
but
that.
like,
He's a crazy
but
woman.
what yeah, but what's so interesting is that with that escalation, it's always like she's crazy. Whereas the other ones, like Enough for Sleeping with the Enemy, it's like they're not crazy. You know, like one of the films I saw, Safe Haven, I think the woman left the husband who was in the police and stuff. And like it's actually fairly well known in places like America, I think, that a lot of police officers are domestic abusers as well. I mean, God, I'm getting in trouble saying things like that, but there are stats for that kind of thing. And there was a film about that talked about stats like that and how they get swept under the rug. But yeah, it's just I guess, I mean, it's gone off on a tangent, but it's just interesting that it's not only the norm in reality, it actually makes for good content. Like another one, which I'm part of as well, is this whole Netflix obsession with crime documentaries, which are almost always murdered women, almost always, and how a lot of women are fascinated by it. And I sometimes wonder if it's just to see, like, will they get the guy, or what would I have done different? Like, I wonder what people, or just being like, we need to be telling these stories because, like, why are these so common? You know what I mean? Like, I can't quite pinpoint why there's such a huge fascination with them, because it's kind of morbid, you know. But like, it's almost always a man who's murdered a woman, almost always.
Yeah, I actually just need to quickly, I'm getting this really weird feeling in my stomach. So Walnut, if you're listening or watching this, I just want to say that if you feel triggered or are feeling any feelings about this episode, there are I'm not going to list them, I'm not going to quote them, I actually don't know them all, but there are like resources for things on domestic violence and all this kind of stuff. I just felt like I needed to say that. So if you're listening to this and feeling a feeling, please move and take an action if you need to. I don't know why I'm feeling so, oh, it makes me want to cry almost.
Great point.
There's such a wheel, I learned this at work, of where of the subtle signs of manipulation and how manipulation that can actually turn into abuse. And I don't want to make this episode about that, but I just feel really, really, it's important to say, Walnut, if you hear this and you're feeling feelings, please move on the feelings if you need to. Love you lots. Sorry, Kate.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
And no, but I think that brings up a really good point, kind of going back to maybe the sisterhood wound, which would be a nice way to cycle back, but also that a lot of women who go through things like that don't talk to their friends or family or things, because a lot of the rhetoric with other women is, well, I could never let that happen. I'm not stupid enough to end up in something like that. And it's like, that makes the people who are intelligent, worthy, brilliant women as well, who are being psychologically and physically broken down, feel like they can't reach out as well. And I think that's another way where women can let down other women with that judgmental thing. I actually just had a chat with my hairdresser, which was funny. She was saying it, she went, you know, she'd been in a similar situation. She can recognize a lot. And she said, and a lot of women don't speak up because they feel like they'll be judged for somehow. And again, that's the issue, isn't it? It's like the woman, it's like even being the victim makes you the person that was weak, or the person who was silly or whatever. And like, so to echo yours, if anyone is feeling, you know, feelings about this, is like, you're not silly and you're not weak, and there are places to reach out to if you don't have people you can talk to. And I do think, to people who are in that situation, like, women, I think that's the other thing, is apart from, you know, calling out men for all this stuff and or, you know, systems for the way things are, women really let down each other. Like, we're just as much as the part of the work that needs to get done. And sometimes all it takes is challenging your thoughts. And I just wanted to bring back, like, without going into detail in our conversation, but you referenced it in your live, like your chat on the walnut tree, and you'd said something which I found a surprising take, and it was kind of a throwaway comment. And all I did, which I do encourage people to do, is I just went, why?
Yeah.
And I wasn't angry. I wasn't like, you know, argumentative. I just was like, that's such a curious comment. I wonder where that came from. And often people don't even know unless they're asked anyway. And so I think sometimes it's not about, because I'm kind of feeling a bit preachy anyway, but like, by all means, like myself, sometimes I have to be like, whoa, why did I just feel like that about someone I don't even know? You know, and challenging yourself, like, where did that come from? Why did I jump to that conclusion? Because there is that thing of, you know, men, if you think about them, they're not all men. What they're saying is, I don't want to be represented by these bad people, right? And I think women have a similar thing, which is when they see someone who they think is, you know, trashy or whatever, you know, crass or whatever it could be, weak on a movie, you know, damsel in distress or whatever, what they want to go is, not all women, like, every woman seems to represent all women, whereas I don't think every man represents all men. You know, they're just kind of like, well, that's that man who did that thing, no one's going to judge me by that guy. Whereas women have constantly felt, if there's some woman out there doing that thing, I'm going to probably be judged by that as well. Which is why I think a lot of women went against the feminism thing, that I don't want to associate, I'm not causing a fuss, don't lump me in with these women causing a fuss. And what's interesting is now men are doing the same thing. They're going like, don't lump me in with all these men doing all these bad things. And it's like, I think all of us need to stop doing that, which is going, let's recognize all these things going on, because as soon as we start saying, oh, well, not me, all you're doing is going, I don't want to talk about that thing. I don't want to be associated with that thing. Which just means there can be no growth. There's no conversation.
I love this, and I actually talked about this last week, Walnut, on episode 79. But I learned from Carrie, who's been on the podcast. We love her. She said something really interesting this week to me, not directly to me, in a group setting. Awareness opens up the realm of choice. So the moment that you think, and I always say to you and all the walnuts that are in this vortex, I always say noticing is the best first step. So the fact that you are walking down the street and notice a thing, that's worth acknowledging and celebrating in yourself that you have done it. You don't need to go up to the man who's maybe said a comment and say, hey, did you know blah blah blah. The fact that you noticed the conversation happening in the first place is a great place to start with all of this kind of stuff. So yeah.
For men, do you mean for other men?
I think even for women, I think even when I was in the elevator by myself with a dude behind, like a step behind me, noticing that, like, oh, this is making me feel this way. Why? Do you know what I mean? Like, I think it's for
I guess for me, I would extend it out more to when it comes to observation. Like for women, I feel like this is, I don't know how to word it. I almost feel like we don't have the luxury in your situation in the lift. I wouldn't think you've got that much luxury of questioning yourself on that, because then it's like, what's unfortunate is it's going like, well, I shouldn't be silly. It's fine. I realize I felt weird. But actually for me, I'm like, that is annoyingly to this day still the things that can be important. Like if you mean acknowledging it in the sense of being like, I need a plan in case this turns, then yes. But unfortunately, I don't think it's a case of being like, oh, notice that you're being hypersensitive. It's just a man in a lift. We're not there yet where we can dismiss those feelings.
No, I don't think it was my acknowledgement wasn't hypersensitive. I think it was that this is how I'm feeling right now. And it was that little alert. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was about to say maybe I should have moved to teach the guy, but no, I shouldn't have. And I didn't. And in that moment I was like, I'm not going to. So
yeah.
okay.
Maybe that's the thing, like one thing I found really interesting is there was this like not challenge because it sounds like it's TikTok or something, but it was something to do with a few women in New York noticed that women tend to move out of the way, kind of like turn their bodies if you're walking in a crowd. You scoot through the things, you walk to the side, and that's not like a protecting yourself thing. It's just actually a weird thing that women have started to do to basically take up the least space possible.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that and I was like, really? I mean, I thought that was just being conscientious, and I thought, but this was the noticing thing. So when I'm walking in London, it'll be the same in Wellington. Wellington's quite good too, because it's very like stay on the left side. Like people are very good walking down footpaths and things. And I did notice I'd be walking down a footpath and I was on my own one time, and sometimes there was no one else on the footpath but a guy walking towards me. And I was like, why are you walking in the middle of the footpath? And it's because without knowing, I'll move aside. And I didn't. And I got barged. It was not even a violent thing. It was that I basically, without realizing, I was like, I really wanted to it was like an experiment. I thought I would obviously move, but I kind of in my head thought, so does everyone. And I thought, I wonder what will happen. There's literally so much space. There's like meters and meters in front of us. And I thought, well, if I just keep going a straight line, surely he'll move. And he didn't. And then, a lot of other times I'd be walking around and I'd be walking to a busy tube station and I'd see some other guys and they'd, move aside, they'd shift to the side. And I'd be like, that thing, I was like, not all men. It's absolutely true. Not all men. But there were enough of them where I was like, one time I wasn't even doing the experiment. I was on my phone standing on the side by a building and a guy literally brushed within a hair's breadth of my face. And I was like, it's 7 a.m. There's all this space. How are you walking past me so closely? And I started thinking, oh my God, are we invisible? And then the next level was I was literally telling my male friend that while we were both walking. And I said to him,
have you noticed I've had to shift my body like 6 times while we're walking and you haven't? Because people move out of your way and I have to move out of theirs. I was like, because I don't want to keep getting shoulder barged. And I just thought, I actually challenge people because I think it's so interesting because it's not like about chivalry. It's not like men should be diving out of the way of women, but it was that equality thing of being like, but I don't think they even, it's that thing of they don't even realize
Yeah.
that women or smaller people as well in general, just make way for them. And so I found that really curious because it just kind of seemed backward to me. I thought, especially big, tall men must be so used to having to sort of make themselves smaller because they take up so much room. And I started to wonder, I was like, obviously not everyone, but I started to wonder or do they just get used to people getting out of their way? So I think it'd be an interesting one, men, women, whoever's listening. Like when you're walking around, don't do what I did because it's not fun. Don't like actually get to the chicken point where you get shoulder barged. But it is curious when you start, like this one thing that I read opened my eyes to something I didn't even know that essentially I was being oppressed by. I'm
Yeah.
not shackled to the street. I'm not being, burned as a witch, but I was weirdly making myself smaller without realizing it almost every day of my life.
I've got goose. I love this conversation, and I thank you so much, Kate, for carrying this conversation a lot more, because like I said at the beginning and throughout, I love how you word these things, because the way that you've said these things really make me think. So Walnut, if you're listening, I hope that this episode in particular has just made you think and have a little bit of an awareness and take on Kate's challenge. And I hope that it just makes you think about things in a different way, at least. But I think it's really important I want to hear your thoughts, Walnut. Kate and I want to hear from you. So after this episode, if you felt things and thought things, have a little walnutting and be brave and post in the group. I think we need to discuss this more, and the walnut tree is a perfect, safe little haven where we can have constructive talks like this. Like you heard in the episode earlier, Kate literally just called me out about my elevator, but it's in a safety, delicious way, right, Kate? Like, I don't know. I feel like we just need to do this more as a sisterhood, but even as
I guess what I was just thinking is like, I wanted to be curious about when you said you noticed it, what that meant, and I think that's what's really interesting is like, especially if anyone's listening is going, I disagree with something really strongly, please say why or what, because I think like the worst thing, and this is where I think there are problems, is the worst thing is thinking like you've never got anything more to learn. So even though I talk about how I feel about things like really confidently, I absolutely know I don't know everything and everyone's different.
Yeah.
But I'm not afraid to have the conversation. And I think a lot of people are scared, and especially men, which I do understand, that they're going to get into a confrontational conversation or just be berated for their sex, which they can't, that's just the way it is. And I think knowing that there are ways to have the conversations, I think is like, it's good to know that there's a safe place. And, not a woman as well. You might ask a woman like, hey, tell me your perspective of this. And they might go, fuck off. And it's like, that could happen. And all I would say is that like, maybe that wasn't the day for her. And that's not great. And women can be rude to men, and it does happen. And that sucks, especially when you are just a nice guy, trying to ask for directions or wanting to have a conversation. It does suck. But it sucks a lot less than the alternative, that why that woman may be aggressive. You don't know how much kind of stuff might have happened to get her to a point where it's easier for her to just go cut straight to fuck off. Not an excuse, but sometimes it's a good thing to go, that's curious. I wonder why that would be, rather than just be angry or offended and things. And so I just say anything good or bad is always worth just asking a question of your friend, someone else later, bring it up later. Don't let these things just fester, and having a good woman to chat to, have a debate with is really great for women, for men, for everyone.
Yep. I love it. Thank you so much, Kate. And thank you, Walnut, for listening. And just before we wrap up, Kate, I kind of don't want to ask you what being a walnut means to you because you've said it 7 times. But I mean, have you got a little female woman empowerment walnutting last thing that you want to maybe say, or in relation to being brave?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I at this point now, I almost like tying in the definition to whatever we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And I would say that like sometimes being brave is going, I don't understand this, or I don't know, and asking a question and being brave enough to be vulnerable. And I really got to shout out some really good guy friends of mine, and actually relative strangers who we've just had a rapport, who have said things, asked me questions like, why do women get annoyed when men ask them to smile? Or why, you know, why should I don't like that I'm worried about hugging someone at the workplace. And I would say being a walnut is being able to risk someone going fuck off sometimes. And you know, that's a shame. That's not going to help you. But be brave, ask the question, ask it earnestly, you know. And as a woman too, in sense of being that walnut, is Lara, you're my best friend forever. And that means that if you say something that I think's kind of out of character or confusing or sort of like just, you know, out of the blue for me, being a true friend is being able to go, why do you feel like that? Being a true friend isn't going, oh, well, she mustn't have, it doesn't matter why she said that because she's my friend. It kind of been bad. And I think that's where a lot of, you know, men, women, everyone is going to get better with friendships, because if they can start asking questions of friends in a safe way, you're walnutting and you're being a true friend, because true friends know that they can ask the hard questions, have the hard conversations, and still come out the other side and have a wine and still be the best friends ever. So that's not really an answer to your question, sorry. But
It is. It's beautiful. Being a walnut is earnestly asking why, I think, in a small summary.
in a
Walnut is
nutshell,
in a walnut shell. Being a walnut is earnestly asking why. I love that. So Walnut, again, if you like this episode, please share and tag me at Walnut Wednesday. Kate is at Miss K Bromley on the Instagrams. Like, share, rate. It's on the YouTubes now as well. All the links are everywhere. But please join the Walnut Tree and let's have a discussion. I think let's just talk a little bit more about things like this. And it, like Kate said, if you disagree, if you kind of agree, if you just want to ask why, let's talk about this more. So thank you, Walnut, for your time and for being here and for listening to us. And Kate, you're my busy friend and I love you and I appreciate your time. And again, thank you for holding this talk with your words that make more sense, and open up those doors and those questions for the walnuts of our collective, because it's amazing. You have a gift of the gab, and in a really constructive way as well. So thank you for your time and for being here again for episode fucking 80. And I love you so much.
I love you. Thank you. No, it's always great. And you know, this kind of stuff I really love talking about, because I just think it's an interesting time. It's blurry, it's crazy, and we should be asking questions because we don't all know what's going on. So thanks for letting me pontificate, and I hope I didn't seem too preachy.
Preach away, baby. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys next week. Happy Walnut Wednesday and have a good one. Bye.
Bye.